Morning. Good morning. Welcome. Welcome to the home of Unitarian Universalism in Central Washington. My name is Lynn Madsen. I'll be your celebrant this morning. Our worship leader is Leigh Pobst. If you are a visitor this morning, and I see a few, we are so glad you are here. We welcome every person of goodwill. That's all you need to show up here. Be of goodwill. No matter what kind of body you inhabit, whomever you love, whatever your age, however you get around in the world, we welcome you. We invite everyone to continue our communion socially following the service with coffee and conversation, both in person and on Zoom. For the folks on Zoom, you will find the order of service, the lyrics for the songs, and the words we say together in the chat. And now, if everybody would turn around and say hello to all those folks on the Zoom. The camera is right in back. And now if you take a moment or two to greet the folks around you, especially if there are people here you do not know. Boy, it is a buoyant and lovely sound in this room this morning. We like that. We like that. There are announcements on a loop. They play before the service. And do you play them after the service as well, Darius? No? Okay. You may find some in the order of service, and you can find them in our weekly newsletter that goes out on email. I do have one announcement. Save the date. October 24th, Spencer LaJoy, who you may know as a brilliant singer-songwriter who wrote the song Plowshare Prayer, which Elizabeth introduced us to a couple of years ago, will be here for a concert. Time and place exactly still to be determined. October 24th, it's a Thursday evening. Our fellowship is located on the ancestral homeland of the Pasquosa. For thousands of years, the Pasquosa have lived here, making a vibrant way of life and a rich culture from the land, the beings and human neighbors with whom they shared it. Hear now the words of Oihesa of the Santee Sioux, also known as Charles Eastman. The first American mingled with his pride a singular humility. Spiritual arrogance was foreign to his nature and teaching. He believes profoundly in silence, the sign of perfect equilibrium. Silence is the absolute poise or balance of body, mind, and spirit. The man who preserves his selfhood, ever calm and unshaken by the storms of existence, not a leaf, as it were, astir on a tree, not a ripple upon the surface of the shining pool. His, in the mind of the unlettered sage, is the ideal attitude and conduct of life. Silence is the cornerstone of character. The Pasquosa still live here, still practice their cultural traditions, are still trying to form healthy, respectful relationships with the dominant culture, and still working to have their rights restored and their treaty obligations fulfilled. We have said we are going to do our part to support them. For more on this subject, please visit our website, cascadeuu.org, under Welcome. We have an announcement.
Good morning. My name is Larry Tabiska. I'm a member of the board of directors and our trustees, we call ourselves, and I just want to make this brief report to you, written by Don Flick, our very capable secretary, and so I'm just a talking head up here. At its August meeting, your board addressed a broad range of topics, which included the agenda for the annual board retreat, which was conducted here at CUF yesterday. Our retreat was a productive discussion to get our new board members integrated into the team and everyone aligned for this new year in our church. Natalie Severson has been able to provide childcare services for CUF for the additional month of August, so the board approved her salary for this welcome extension to her service. Rita reported on the planning for the installation service for Reverend Thomas as our called minister. This is a big deal in the life of CUF, and plans include a Sunday service, followed by a celebration dinner sometime in October or early November. Discussions underway to find a date which works for the desired guest speakers and participants. We also discussed the report from the new building task force on the recent meeting with representatives from the First United Methodists of Wenatchee. And we continue to explore the use of the currently unused Trinity Methodist building, which is up on 8th Street here in East Wenatchee, as our new home. It appears these discussions will take a meaningful amount of time, which is to say they're dragging on, and confidence has diminished somewhat that a path for success will be found. The task force plans to update and seek input from the fellowship following our services on September 29. So you may want to be sure and think about that date. Discussion for a new home. Your board also discussed the recommendation from the Financial Committee for the allocation of surplus dollars in this year's budget. A welcome problem to have. It was agreed to move $23,000 into the new building fund, and referencing Lynn's comments about the Pascosa, the balance of $10,000 into an account to be created for Indigenous reparations. It was further agreed that a task force be created to define the objectives and strategies for CUF reparation activities. The board also decided to discuss as a policy item the appropriate amount of contingency dollars to accumulate, which we have been doing for some years. We also approved a new rental policy for the use of our buildings, which brings great clarity to the issue of who we will rent to, at what rate, and how to address property protection issues. More information on this policy will be provided in the future. Huge thanks to Rita and others for work on this. We also discussed the ongoing opportunity to resurrect our religious education program. A modest salary for our RE director is in the budget, and Reverend Thomas is looking for a volunteer to help direct this RE initiative. Please see Reverend Thomas if you're interested in helping.
Thank you, Larry, and thank you to the board.
Good morning. Our opening words are, we gather from Pat Uribe Lichty. We gather. We bring our sorrows, our disappointments, our failures. We gather for healing, for laughter, and to rejoice. We gather to find new ways of loving, new ways of thinking, new ways of being. We gather. Yes, always we gather, for it is in gathering that we find our hope. And now, the chalice and flame symbolize our congregation gathered in principles and faith. If you at home have your chalice with you, please join me now in lighting it. Here in the sanctuary, we will speak these lighting words in unison. In the light of truth and the warmth of love, we gather to seek and seek to share.
Nice deep breath. We have 3 readings today. The first is from ayadashanti. Freedom is the realization that everything and everybody gets to be exactly as they are. Unless we've come to that point, unless we've seen that this is how reality sees things, then we're actually withholding freedom from the world. From Joseph Campbell, we must let go of the life we have planned so as to accept the one that is waiting for us. And from Rumi, out beyond ideas of wrongdoing and right doing, there is a field. I'll meet you there. When the soul lies down in that grass, the world is too full to talk about. It's our custom to send the children off to classes with a song. Typically, they're sitting up front and they pass through the arches. I don't know if your children would be comfortable with no. So we will just sing our song anyway as they go with Natalie and Sarah. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share. Now go with each other to find meaning in the spirit of love that we share.
When I asked myself why I am speaking today, I thought about one of the petals on the new shared values of the Unitarians, that of transformation. Basically, it says that we covenant to collectively transform and grow spiritually and ethically, that change is never complete and never perfect. With that in mind, I want to share a story about Nasruddin. And if you don't know who Nasruddin is, he's either a real or mythical character, depending on who you ask, in Muslim folklore. One night, friends came upon Nasruddin. He was outside on the ground, crawling around on his hands and knees under a lamppost. "What are you looking for?" they asked him. "I've lost my keys." So they all got down to help him look. But after a fruitless time searching, somebody thought to ask him, "Now, where exactly did you lose your keys?" And Nasruddin said, "Over there." So they said, "Then why are you looking on the ground here?" "Because the light is better here." There are many different interpretations of this parable that I'm sure we could all learn something from. But the one that captured my imagination is from Lawrence Shainberg in his book, Ambivalent Zen. For 10 years, Lawrence thought he understood this parable, but one day he decided to ask his Japanese Zen master for his interpretation. His master appeared to just give it no thought at all, but sometime later, the master brought it up again. "So, Larry-san, what's Nasruddin saying?" the Zen master asked. "I asked you, Roshi." "Easy," he said. "Looking is the key. Looking is the key." So today, I'm going to invite all of you to go on a journey with me and imagine all of us down under that lamppost, looking. Who knows what we will find? When preparing to speak today on dualism and non-dualism, I was reminded of yet another Nasruddin story. Once Nasruddin was invited to deliver a sermon, and when he got up to the pulpit, he said, "Do you know what I'm going to say?" The audience replied, "No." So he said, "Well, I have no desire to speak to people who don't even know what I'm talking about," and he left. The people felt embarrassed, and they called him back again the next day. And this time, when he asked the same question, "Do you know what I'm going to say?" the people said, "Yes." So Nasruddin said, well, since you already know what I'm going to say, I won't waste any more of your time, and he left. So the people were really confused, and they decided to try one more time. And this time, when he got up and he asked the same question, do you know what I'm going to say? Half of the audience said yes, and half of them said no. So Nasruddin said, well, then let the half who knows what I'm going to say tell it to the half who don't know. And he left. Can you feel the frustration in Nasruddin's congregation, stuck in this dualistic dilemma? Maybe you've been in a situation where that black and white, either or thinking seems to keep you mired in a no-win situation. Duality. So what is duality? Unlike Nasruddin, I'm not going to make you answer it ahead of time. Dualism simplified implies a relationship between a pair of opposites, good and bad, joy or sorrow. Win, lose. Us, them, me, you. The list goes on and on. Non-dualism is just looking at the same pair of opposites as one whole system. It includes all possibilities. Dualism is actually our ordinary state of consciousness. It's what we were born into. All of us evolved from a cell that had a distinct boundary inside the cell walls and outside. Boundaries can keep us safe. But dualistic thinking doesn't always serve us well. We're quick to label certain situations as good if we like it and bad if we don't. When we see the world in binary goods and bads, right and wrong, better or worse, we suck joy out of life. It can make our very existence feel precarious and keep us from living and experiencing the rich and full life that is available to us. One thing for sure is that life is uncertain. We never know what situations may bring. When we are confronted by emotionally charged circumstances, we instinctively want to hold on to the good experiences. Then we can feel safe. We feel okay. And we also try to fend off what we consider painful or challenging, what doesn't feel safe. Some of you know that my late husband, Gordon, had Parkinson's and Parkinson's-related dementia. As part of that journey, he would regularly see the neurologist. And sometimes at that visit, he would be given a cognitive test. One time that I remember in particular, he was taking that test, and I realized pretty quickly that he was doing very poorly. I watched as he unsuccessfully tried to draw a clock, and I could feel the fear in my body. I watched my engineer of a husband unable to draw a three-dimensional rectangle, and the dread just settled in my stomach. I remember sitting there hoping that he would do better, that he would remember. Gordon may have been unable to draw a clock, but he was certainly aware that he was, quote, failing that test. And I could tell he felt dejected. Even the neurologist felt terrible. He said, I'm sorry. When I was walking out of that office with Gordon, I had what I now describe as a moment of grace. I turned to Gordon and said, you don't have to remember a thing. It's okay. I didn't realize it at the time, but by needing him to be different, I was withholding freedom from Gordon to be himself, to live the life he was given. I realized that the only problem in that moment was my thinking that things should be different, that he should be different. Dualism may be our normal state of consciousness, but there is a non-dual state of consciousness available to us, but we have to consciously choose it. And that opens the door to uncertainty and disturbance. Yet it's that very disturbance that can create space for new possibilities. It requires us to pause, to not jump too quickly to conclusions, to momentarily suspend judgments. If we can hold the tension long enough, we can open to a new place. We can step into the unknown. I read a definition of non-duality that I love, and honestly, I can only understand by a felt sense, not two. I would like to give you the opportunity to experience your own felt sense of this with an experiential. So get comfortable, place both feet on the floor, and if it feels okay for you, close your eyes. Bring your attention to your breath deep in your belly. Take a deep breath. Another. Now, in your imagination, draw a circle. You are inside the circle, and everyone else is outside. Now, remove the circle. Not two. When you're ready, open your eyes. What arose for you in that experience? What feelings came up? There are no right or wrong answers, only your experience. Maybe you had an awareness, maybe not. This shift to non-duality is not about trying to improve ourselves. It's to invite a shift in perspective so that we are able to relate to any experience we have, regardless of what it may be. It's not about trying to rise above our humanness, but about being completely committed to experiencing our lives regardless of the situation. There is real pain in the world, but every time we separate ourselves from our real felt experience and go into our stories or demands how we think things should be, we abandon ourselves and the vulnerability in the present moment. By committing completely to the truth of our reality in this moment, we invite the possibility that this situation is a completely valid part of our life, of us. The practice of giving up the fantasy of a life without disturbance invites a deep level of freedom. We find less and less to protect and defend. We become unconditional with whatever experiences we're having. Without any value system of good and bad, right and wrong, better or worse, what needs to be different? What I am talking about today is not magical thinking or false positivity. I am not asking us to assume the false hope that something good will come from a challenging situation. And I am not saying we shouldn't feel things. In fact, what I am asking of us is the opposite. To become more present to our actual feelings and at the same time less identified by them, less attached. Our feelings then become more fluid, more flexible. We can have a sense of freedom and resilience that's not dependent upon fluctuating good or bad circumstances. Regardless of whether we like or dislike what arises in our life, we start to develop an attitude of kindness and acceptance towards ourselves and others. We begin to have unconditional love toward our worst fears and our vulnerabilities. We become less divided against ourselves and others and begin to realize that what we're seeking is already present right now. regardless of circumstances. Nothing needs to change for us to feel complete and at peace except our own perception of reality. We're already free. Now, before we leave that lamp post under the light looking, I'm going to close with a quote from an unknown source. The great way is not difficult for those who have no preferences. When love and hate are both absent, everything becomes clear and undisguised. Make the smallest distinction, however, and heaven and earth are sent infinitely apart. Is taking with us the possibility of freedom and the joy of having fellow companions along the way. And now, as we extinguish our chalice, please join me in saying the words planted on the screen. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. And this is the time when we join hands in a circle.
Carry the flame of peace.